it's Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder coming at you with another Pioneer brew. It's going to be another Wombo combo. I don't know why I'm in the mood lately for these Wombo combo decks, but this one is a fun one that I've been playing at my local game store. It can win as quick as turn 3 with the right 7 cards in your opening hand, and I know this deck has existed in other people's brews before, other lists. I mean, I think it's actually had some decent finishes in various tournaments, but I was surprised that they are not running the consistency of collected companies. So I took a crack at it and made my own list here, and this is the Acererak the Archlich combo, which utilizes Acererak the Archlich as the finisher. If you're not familiar with how this deck runs, there's a million CEDH videos out there for this. It's a very, very popular commander. You basically go infinite with Acererak because the way they worded this card is it says that you have to complete the particular dungeon for Acererak to ever stay on the battlefield. So let's just go over the card here. It says when Acererak the Archlich enters the battlefield, if you haven't completed Tome of the Annihilation, return Acererak the Archlich to its owner's hand and venture into the dungeon. So if you chose any other dungeon besides Tome of the Annihilation, you can continue to put Acererak the Archlich back in your hand. There are a lot of cards in just mono black and artifacts that can reduce the cost of Acererak's down to 0, or at least get mana back when it comes into play, so you can recast it over and over. And this deck is going to utilize green to try to get this combo going. So don't even worry about the other text in this card. You never ever want Acererak the Archlich to come down as a creature to create those zombies. Who cares about that? We're just going to use the triggers and the dungeon crawling effect, because Tomb of the Annihilation is something that is a terrible dungeon to begin with. The other 2 tombs will finish off the game, whether it be through card draw or just the drain life effects of the dungeons. So the particular dungeon that you probably want to be going down is going to be the Lost Mine of Phandelver, I think that's how you say it. So what you're looking for is just that each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life, because once you get this combo going, you can just cast this infinitely. So you just cast this over 100 times, I guess is what it would be, to drain your opponent 20 life, and you just win the game from the dungeons. So this deck can be, shut down by like Hush Wing Griffin type effects that, make it so you can't trigger cards, or there are things that casting 1 spell per turn can really hurt this card. But other than that, the combo is pretty resilient to disruption, as there are a lot of ways to find the combo. So let's just go over the combo pieces. The strongest one in this deck is going to be Gwenna, Eyes of Gaea. So Gwenna, Eyes of Gaea and Acererak are just a match made in heaven, because when Acererak comes into play, not only are you going to untap Gwenna, you actually are going to put a +1 counter. And so this is a neat little card too. If you don't quite have the combo to cast infinitely, it ends up just costing 1 mana, and then your Gwenna gets quite big, and you can generate a lot of dungeon crawling just from these 2 alone. That's why I Collected Company, finding these end of turn and then to be able to cast it a few times in your next turn is actually pretty good value in the Pioneer format. So Gwenna needs to be comboed with a few other cards to make it go infinite, and another one of those is going to be Kinnan, Bonder Prodigy. This is probably the second most powerful card in this deck. It says whenever you tap an on-land permanent for mana, add 1 mana of that type that the permanent produced. So Gwenna can just tap for triple black with Kinnan, and that just makes Acererak infinite, and you can infinitely untap Gwenna, infinitely cast Acererak, infinitely drain your opponent. You can do other shenanigans if you want by crawling down other dungeons, but that's the quickest way to do it. The other one that can combo is Goreclaw, Terror of Sisma. It doesn't hit off of Collected Company because it is 4 mana. That's why we're only utilizing 3 copies in this deck. However, this makes creature spells you cast with power 4 or greater cost 2 less. So Acererak goes down to 1 black. And not only does Gwenna then produce that black to cast infinitely, but you're actually generating up mana. Not the greatest though, because we don't really care at that point of casting anything else. So, rounding out the other combo is going to be this neat little card from Domineer called Relic of Legends. Relic of Legends says tap, add 1 mana of any color, but you can tap an untap legendary creature you control to add 1 mana of any color. So the combo of this is when you cast Acererak, you hold priority before it gets bounced back to your hand, and you're able to tap it to add 1 mana of any color. In this case, you're going to add black. And then if you have things like Kinnan, Bond Prodigy, and Goreclaw, Terror of Qualsima, this is a 3-card combo that can actually work and go infinite. So there's a lot of mix and matches you can do with these cards. We are going to be running one other card that does reduce the cost of Acererak, which is Cemetery Prowler. Now, Cemetery Prowler is just kind of nice. It's more of a sideboard card, but I do like running one in the main, because if you are able to exile a card with Cemetery Prowler particularly a creature, then your creature spells cost 1 less, and that will make something like either Kinnan, Bond, or Prodigy, and the Relic of Legends go infinite with the Cemetery Prowler, or it does allow for Gwenna, Eyes of Gaea also to go infinite with the Cemetery Prowler. So lots of ways to find your combination with the Acererak the Archlich. So now we're going to talk about cards that are just kind of round this out. We're not going to be worried whatsoever what our opponent's doing. We're going to try to race them. This deck is insanely good against other combo decks. It does struggle against disruptive decks, or like I said, there's like the Hushwing Gryff and can't cast more than 1 spell per turn that can really mess with this deck. However, I mean, on game 1, they're not going to have those. Game 2, we do have a sideboard plan to kind of go against those control-based strategies. So the rest of the cards in this deck are just going to be trying to ramp out or really help us find the combo pieces. So first, we're going to be running the 6 of the Elves, the 3 Elvish Mystics, and the 3 Llanowar Elves. That allows us ideally to get a Gwenna out on turn number 2, and that allows for the turn 3 combo. That's the only way you can do it, is with an Elf. We're also going to be running 3 Prosperous Innkeepers. It's got some neat little combos here with the Kinnan, Bonder, Prodigy as the treasure tokens will add 2 mana, and it can really ramp you up for cards like the Chord of Calling or the Collected Company or Eldritch Evolution, which are going to be our slots that we're going to be running to try to find the combo piece. So I think Collected Company is the most powerful one in this because it does find you hopefully 2-3 drops, and as I mentioned before, that can be Acererak and something like a Gwenna, or if you have Acererak in your hand, hopefully it finds like Gwenna and Kinnan. And what I really, really like about Collected Company is this instant speed. Your opponent taps out, you Collected Company, and then hopefully you can go off there, or it's just a lot of value at that point with Collected Company. The Chord of Callings are also quite strong because, again, instant speed. I'm choosing to run Chord of Calling over the other cards that can do similar things like Finale of Devastation, because Chord of Calling instant speed is huge in this format. Your opponent then, end of turn, not being able to react to stuff is very, very good. So another card that is quite good in this deck, which particularly good with things like Prosperous Innkeeper, is going to be the Eldritch Evolution. So the Prosperous Innkeeper can go get a Goreclaw with an Eldritch Evolution, as well as it can still go get Kinnan or Gwenna to find that combo. Or if you still are digging for Acererak, it's another way to get Acererak. Keep in mind you can use the Eldritch Evolutions to sacrifice Elvish Mystic or Llanowar Elf to go get one of your pieces as well. Now, the last card in this deck that we are going to be run to help us find our combos can be the Trophy Mage. We're going to run 1 Trophy Mage because a Trophy Mage can simply go get a Relic of Legends. Now, you can also run something like a Bantu's Monument in here if you really want to drain your opponents every time you cast a creature spell. However, I think it's more of a win more card. It doesn't reduce the cost of the black mana, which is really what you want. It only works with the Acererak the Archlich, but it's still a piece you could run in the deck if you wanted to. So as far as the mana base is concerned, first off, we're going to run 2 Turntimber Symbiosises. You'd be surprised at how easy this card, even though it costs 7 mana to cast, is with even Kinnan, Prosperous Innkeepers, and like Elvish Mystics. I've been able to cast a Turntimber Symbiosis no problem very quickly in this deck, just when I was drawing duds and had a bunch of Elves and the Kinnan, and you're just tapping your Elves for 2 each. Easy way to cast Turntimber Symbiosis. It'll dig you deep into your deck to hopefully find one of your combo pieces. And again, it's just another thing at the cost of 3 life I don't think is too bad, because the Prosperous Innkeeper is a way for us to gain some life. And some lists I've had even more Prosperous Innkeepers, more Elvish Mystics, and a little bit less on the Chord of Calling's Eldritch Evolution Collected Company package. Other than I think that's the better route to go in this particular shell, is to really go all in on trying to find the combo pieces. We are going to run some other utility lands like Boseiju, who endures, as well as things like Plaza of Heroes to help fix our mana for the legendary cards. I think it's another thing with this deck too, you got to keep in mind that casting an Acererak is sometimes good, just like on an empty board, and bouncing it back to your hand and getting like a treasure token, or if you decide to go down the more grindy dungeon of the Mad Mage, you can actually get a lot of value off of the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. And if you're going against like a control shell, that's not too bad, just casting it a couple times per turn and eking out some value. The other lands we are going to be running in this is going to be a Takenuma, Abandoned Mire, just to help us dig for combo pieces. And the rest of it's just going to be, you want some sort of combination of fast lands and shock lands in the green variety. So everything this deck wants to be adding green. So whether it be Overgrown Tombs or Darkbore Pathways, Breeding Pools, Botanical Sanctums, Blooming Marshes, it's all kind of meta dependent. If you're going up against a hyper aggressive meta, that's when you want to stick with lands that don't shock you when they come into play. That's where the pathways might be a little bit better. And same thing with like the Blooming Marshes. If you really need to, go against aggro-based decks, that 2 life is very, very relevant, and that might be a better split to be running more with Blooming Marsh and the Botanical Sanctum package. However, you keep in mind that sometimes you have to grind, and if those come into play tapped, that might be the difference of casting another Acererak trigger or not. So I do like the shock lands in this particular build. And as you can see on your screen, this is the package of lands that I am utilizing. Now, onto the sideboard. So there's a couple of different ways you can decide to go with the sideboard. You can go the traditional, okay, we have blue, we can run things like Stubborn Denial isn't terrible if you have a Goreclaw out. There's like the Make Disappears, a lot of the counter spells, to stop our opponents from disrupting our combo. There's that route you can go. And there's also like the Thoughtseize Duress type package you can go with black to try to rip out the cards that are going to be answering your combos. I particularly like to just do a bait and switch type sideboard. Now what this is our opponent then is geared towards defeating a combo deck, and we just transition over to an aggro deck. So I have cards like Glissa Sunslayer, which is super powerful off of an elf. If you go first turn elf into a Glissa Sunslayer, oftentimes that can take over the game with the value. We have cards like Scavenging Ooze that is able to eat our opponent's graveyard if they're a graveyard-based deck and just really buff up an Ooze. And the main card, though, that would transition over into an aggro shell is going to be the Thronebreaker of Silence. Thronebreaker of Silence just absolutely destroys a lot of decks in this particular meta. They just can't even take care of it. It's a 5/5 that just gets through every turn, and it's just a beater. And especially they brought in so many cards to try and deal with the combo pieces. Thrun is just the breaker of this kind of the stalemate of what happens when they bring in so much control. Speaking of which, another card that's pretty good in these grindy based decks is a Silverback Elder. For 5 mana, you get a 5/7, and every time you cast a creature spell, you can destroy an artifact or enchantment. So typically, I like to bring this in the grinder matchups. You can also find lands off the top of your library, and you can gain life against those aggro matchups. It's kind of neat too with Acererak, because Acererak gives you that ability to cast it multiple times. So maybe you don't have the combo out, it becomes 3 mana. Or typically if you've got another way to reduce it, to gain some life, ramp, a lot of stuff you can do with the Silverback Elder. Another card that I think is pretty neat, and I'm surprised that more Pioneer decks are not running this combo when they run Elves, is the Gemraiser. Gemraiser is a great mutate card on an Elf. So as quickly as turn number 2, you can mutate one of your Elves into a 4/4 and destroy an artifact or enchantment opponent controls. So this is like the Fable of the Mirror Breakers, the Reckoner Bankbusters. Those type of cards are quite good to then Gemraiser, and then you have a 4/4 that can start beating down after that. So this is an option. Again, there are a lot of different sideboard cards you can run. You can go bigger on the hard to kill cards. You can go even more aggressive on cards like Questing Beast. There's a lot of slots here. I typically do like the bait and switch. Rounding out the other cards in my sideboard is going to be Saryth, the Viper's Fang. This card is actually really good to protect your combo in certain decks. If you can just give all of your cards hexproof when they're untapped, that's a great way to protect them. And again, you do have to tap them to typically when Kinnan doesn't really need to if you have like the Kinnan combo with the Relic. And the cool thing about the Gwenna is it does untap itself. You at least will have one activation with Saryth, the Viper's Fang, to untap it, and then give it hexproof if your opponents are trying to kill it. But that, I think Saryth is pretty good, and this is a 3/4 to be able to, it's decently aggressive. Tap creatures have Death Touch, your elves can start attacking in. It's a decently aggressive card that also protects your board. And going to be run one more Cemetery Prowler. And another card I like to bring in versus the extremely grindy matchups, if you get into like this mid-range control, Rakdos type grindy matchup, is Storm the Festivals. This is the card that I found the best because for just 5 mana you can find 2 permanents, and then if you flash it back, which again isn't that hard with Kinnans in the deck, you can get up to 10 mana, not bad, to flash back and find 2 more. And this is really when I bring in the package of like the Thronebreaker of Silences, the Silverback Elders, and the Saryths. Those are really good versus that Rakdos mid-range type strategy that you can start to actually try to, they're going to shut your combo down with the Thoughtseizes, with all the control, they're going to shut your combo down. So you do kind of do that bait and switch into like this mid-range aggro type strategy. Anyway, there you have it. That is my deck list for the Acererak combo. Now, this is a really, really fun card. I'm going to try to be putting out a video for kind of like, I wouldn't call it quite a CEDH deck, but more like a, I don't know, Power 7, Power 8 deck for Acererak the Archlich. Typically, I only like to run this card if I don't like the group I'm playing Commander with. I'm like, if they're going to play a lot of degenerate decks, then I'll just sleeve up the Acererak the Archlich and play this in Commander. So there's a lot of fun things you can do with Acererak in the Commander format as well. It's got a lot of help in these last few sets with more ways to reduce the cost and more ways to really abuse this card. So fun little card. I'm glad it's found a place in the Pioneer format. I think the Pioneer is in a really good place right now. There is more than just rock, paper, scissors. There's a plethora of different strategies you can go with, like mix and matching and tuning. And those are the type of the formats that I like. It's really reminding me of the early modern days of the Jund, where Rakdos and Jund are quite similar of how they policed the format, but there are ways to eke in with these, off-meta decks that could be quite successful. If you remember, my whole success story for this channel was I identified that Soul Sisters was really good in Modern because people were playing a lot of Jeskai and Jund, and was able to win a PTQ and then go to a Pro Tour because no one thought of Soul Sisters. Yeah, Soul Sisters had a horrible combo matchup, but when the vast majority of people are running these, anti-combo policing decks, like the 50, what I like to call the 50%er decks that are just good against 50% across the board, then you can actually find these like off-meta like decks that might not even be that great in Standard that actually perform quite well in those particular formats. But anyway, we're going off the beaten path here, and I'm starting to ramble, which my editor is not going to appreciate, so we're going to close this video. The deck list will be in the description below, as well as a link to the deck if you do want to copy pasta and throw it up on MTGO or play it at your local game store. Hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Kevin with the Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.